welcome to Frontlist. I am excited and delighted to have you on board. And now let's start with the point blank interviews, right? So I would like to ask you a little questionnaire, right? First question of the whole interview should be The Mystery of Parsee Lawyer, your book, right? It gained a lot of popularity after it got published for obvious reasons. So could you just tell us about the book and tell us something about the fascinating character of George Edalji?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with the title of the book, The Mystery of the Parsee Lawyer. Who is the Parsee Lawyer? Well, his name is George Edalji. He is 28 years old and he used to live, he's a solicitor, he used to live in this village in Great Worley, which is somewhere near Birmingham in England, a small village. And his father was the vicar of the church, the local church. So his father is the vicar of Great Worley. His name is Shrabani Basu. He was a Parsee who came from Bombay, converted to Christianity, and eventually became the vicar of this little town. Now, this is way back in 1876 when he becomes the vicar. So you can imagine it's the height of Victorian England. Many areas have never seen an Indian man before. And suddenly here is this Indian with a pronounced Indian accent who becomes the vicar of the local church. Of course, his firstborn is George Edalji. His wife is English, Charlotte. So this is a family and eventually they have 2 more children. But what happens, moving the story forward, the family is subjected to a lot of racist attack right through. But in 1903, things become really murky because this little village has a series of crimes and the crimes are, very sort of agricultural. Somebody is mutilating horses and leaving them to die in the field. So it's a very gruesome crime and the police can't catch them. And suddenly the suspicion falls on George Edalji, the son of the vicar. For no reason at all. He has nothing to do with animals. He's a solicitor. But, there it is. So he's actually arrested, tried, imprisoned for 7 years. And he writes to Arthur Conan Doyle, the author, famous author who created Sherlock Holmes. And he writes to him and he says, you can help me. Only Sherlock Holmes can help me. So that is, solve this mystery and, sort of clear my name because I haven't done this. So that's the story really in and out.
So let's get back to the second question. I'd like to ask you how you came across the case of George Edalji, specifically this case, and what was the inspiration and why you decided and when you decided that you would write a novel on this specific case. It would require a lot of research, factual things. So I would like to ask you, when did you just got the idea that, okay, I write this novel and then how it came to you?
Right. So I did know about the George Edalji case because, I've been working here for many years now. I live in London. I follow a lot of cases of, stories about Indians living in the UK in, historical times. That's what I write about. I wrote about Victoria and Abdul. I wrote about Noor Inayat Khan. These are my, past books. So this is what I love to do. So I did know the story of George Edalji. Also because Arthur Conan Doyle himself wrote about this case. Yeah, so it's mentioned in one of his memoirs and he wrote about it in the Daily Telegraph all those years ago. So we know that this happened. But, as a journalist, I wanted to find new material. I wanted to do something new. And so then in 2015, I saw a small newspaper article about letters between Arthur Conan Doyle and the police at the time of this case. And, I said there must be something new over here. And, I wanted to follow this story. So that's how I started. It took 5 years. I started my, proper research in 2015, but it took a lot of work. And of course, it's history. I write non-fiction, so it's not fiction at all. It may sound like a thriller, but it is actually completely based on facts.
But it is not.
Yeah, it is based on facts, and everything is sourced. Yeah.
So, but a lot of research must have gone into writing this vivid book, right?
Yeah.
So, how long it took to collect memos or research on? I am pretty sure that you might have faced some obstacles when you were doing research work or somebody was not as helpful as you would recommend them to be. But what all were the obstacles and...
Sure. Yeah. So basically, I think I got frozen. Yeah. Yes, like I said, it took me 5 years to research this book. So it took a long time. The material was spread in different libraries, different archives. So I traveled to Portsmouth where the Arthur Conan Doyle papers are kept. That was the starting point. I went to Birmingham, where they have records of George Edalji. He used to work over there. There's places in Staffordshire, which has, many of the court documents, various other cases. And then we have the National Archives in Kew in London, which has all the Home Office papers and the police files. So I had to go through a lot of archival footage, a lot of material, and finally then, distill this story, because after 5 years, my study was just full of papers, piled high. And then the process of, extracting from that, making it a narrative, getting a story, what structure am I going to give this? It's a very complicated story, but I have to break it down for my audience and my readers. So that's the challenge.
That was quite a challenge which you took up and you excelled in it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but I enjoy the research. It's not a problem.
Yeah. The curiosity just took you away, I suppose.
It is, and there were so many twists and turns. So, that kept me going, because I came across unexpected things that I
unfold. Yeah, you just wanted to unfold every turn and every truth, whatever you could gather, and you just wanted to give your writers the exact thing which you want to read yourself as well.
Exactly. So it's like I went on the trail of Arthur Conan Doyle, and I take my readers on this trail as he solves this mystery. And also we go back and forth through time as to what happened to this family, and why did Shapurji come, why did he leave Bombay, why did he come to England, what happened to him. So there's just so much of background as well that I wanted to look into, which I did. Yeah.
So honestly, I'm not an avid reader. In fact, I'll say I'm not a reader of books as well. But just the conversation we guys are having right now is making me think, okay, I should just buy the book right now and read it.
Yes, definitely.
It's so thrilling right now by just having a conversation and thinking. I'm just assuming that it is the people who love your content and all those things, those will be so happy after reading the book, because this might just inspire them as well, I think. So some journalist or something. So I'll just ask two, three more questions. One personal detail, who is your favorite author and why do you like that specific person?
So obviously, I read a lot, different types of books. So fiction is a whole different category. I love different types of fiction. So we won't even go there. I like from classics to, I will read a wartime thriller of John le Carré to a classic, Dickens or, a Tolstoy. That's the fiction bit. I love their narratives. I love books which have a historical content, something like Tolstoy, War and Peace, the books like that, big tomes. But for non-fiction, which is what I write, I read a lot of authors who really inspire me. Some of them are like Margaret Macmillan. She's very good. She's written about the First World Wars. One of her earliest books was about women of the Raj. And I think that really inspired me because it had these stories of these women who went from England, basically they went there to India and what they did. It was stories like that, personal stories that people don't know, that really inspired me. So I love her books. There's a journalist who writes here about secret agents, unknown secret agents. He loves finding them, and his name is Ben McIntyre. I like his books as well. So this is the sort of non-fiction people that I love to read. But it's a wide spectrum, really. Yeah.
That sounds a lot of writers and most importantly, you read a lot.
It's my job. Yeah.
Right. So, being a journalist, right? I have a hint that it might have really helped you to cover every possible aspect of your book. But do you want to share that if a non-journalist background person would want to go and research, what would you inspire or what will you advise to those people? I am believing that you, as being a journalist, would have covered a lot of things. But if somebody who is not a journalist want to write something just like what you did, how start or what you should do?
Well, I think first they have to find a subject that they really want to do. That is the most important thing, You have to really be curious about your subject. So, because if you really want to do a good job, you're going to take 3-4 years minimum to do it, if to complete it. So being a journalist, I read the newspapers back to front. And to me, I read the tiny articles in the newspapers, because they catch my eye, something. And that's how I come across many of my stories. But that's different to do the sort of work I do. Because as a journalist, I'll write 1,000-word piece. I don't have to do that. I do the research, but 1,000 words is very different from 100,000 words. It's a world of difference where the research comes in, right? So that is the difference. So you have to have the passion and the staying power to carry on your research, to find out where the story is taking you, it might take you in totally different directions. You're going to find surprises, but you have to keep looking. So I think the discipline of working in archives is something that for a beginner, it's very frightening because, where do you go? Where do you start? In the British Library, there's you probably just think, where am I going to even start? And so you have to narrow down. It's a process that starts, but, eventually, you get there. And you have to be passionate about it. I mean, that is the main thing, don't give up. And no shortcuts, Yeah. No shortcuts. Don't try to make it happen.
If you're passionate enough that you'll be able to finish it off. If not, then I think so that you just leave it in between, right?
Right.
Did you follow any kind of a specific process when you were sorting out, okay, this is where I should start or this is where I should just leave it? And more importantly, I'll come to second question. This is a good question. At any point of given time while you were researching or doing any kind of stuff for the specific book, did you feel that, okay, I think so that I should leave it, or were you demotivated at any point of contact or any point of time that I think I should just drop the idea, or were you very headstrong through the entire journey?
Well, you feel that when you spend 5 years with a book, you do get very, very exhausted. There are moments that in every writer's life, I mean, when I was writing Victoria and Abdul, all those years ago, I just didn't know where I was going to go. It was such a blank slate. And, I just carried on and on. And sometimes I was thinking, where am I going? And I'm going to Agra, I'm going to Windsor, I'm going to Scotland, and I'm just researching. So, but, eventually it comes out. But it's very natural to feel very exhausted, very defeated. And then you just have to pick yourself up and say, carry on. Sometimes you can spend 2 weeks in an archive, just going through old newspaper cuttings and not find anything. And then that's when you really feel frustrated. I've spent 2 weeks, I've not found anything. But suddenly you'll find something. And that itself is just, the crucial
thing. A little victory, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I believe that, yes, my research is right. I also did a little research. So you chose Bloomsbury as your publisher. Any specific reason behind choosing Bloomsbury, or you had multiple things and that was the best bet that you placed?
Well, yeah, there are, the agent handles it and you get offers from different publishing groups, and then you go with what you think would work best for the book. You look at the editor, you look at, advances. There's many things. There's also the financial thing as well. So, yeah. Money always speaks, so it does. Yeah, I mean, it's important as well because you're going to spend 5 years working on this. So
agreed. That is my another question just popped up. That is, I am going out of the questionnaire for a bit. How did you fund it, the whole thing? You did 5 years of research. So I do believe that for those 5 years, how did you fund your lifestyle, your regular expenses, and what could you done differently that you didn't? These are some basic questions which every reader, and I'm specifically telling you, your readers would like to know.
Absolutely.
Detailed author and all those things. So these are little snippets that every reader or the content user would know, right? Yeah. So I would like you to tell a little detail about those things. How did you fund those things?
Absolutely. So, it's really important. So the first thing is that I have a job. I have a full daytime job. So I don't just depend on writing income. I mean, I could, by now I've done so many books that I could, but I still, I enjoy journalism. I like my job. So I it's something that keeps me founded, grounded, and I enjoy it. So even just before coming on, I was doing a story about Harry and Meghan and their baby, Okay. So there's always stories that I'm constantly filing, which I enjoy. The books take me a long time, so I research them at longer. But yes, I mean, I would, advances are important, but every writer doesn't get I got a small advance for my first book. I mean, it just got dinner for the family, the extended family, not just my own family, but a nice big dinner in India is what I had with that money. It didn't go anywhere, but I had a job, so it didn't really matter. And then you get the royalties, and then it picks up. So, it's very rarely that a first-time author is going to just, it does happen, but he's going to get a huge advanced. Until you're known, you're not going to get it. So you have to keep plugging. You might have to do a day job. Lots of writers have a day job. I think it's important because you've got to, stay with your book unless you have something else that funds your work. If you are like me and you have to fund yourself. And then I used to keep the money from the first book to pay for research for the second book. So it sort of goes on.
Agreed. That is what you should do, I think. So that's a practical advice to give anybody. So talking about advices, what advice would you like to give all the budding non-fiction authors? Any kind of advice that you would like to pass on to the younger ones or to the older ones as well, that this is what I found effective in my way and I would like to impart a little knowledge from my own to you guys that this works?
Well, the thing is, I can only say for youngsters, those who are older than me, I'm learning myself all the time. So it's not that, I feel that every day we need to learn something. We need to increase our knowledge. We need to learn from others and, share experiences. But for the youngsters, I would say if you want to do, my line is nonfiction. If you want to go for nonfiction, you have to do your research. There is no other way. If you are if you're writing fiction, that's different. That's your choice and that's a different field. But I would just say, as I said before, no shortcuts. You've just got to stay with it. If you want a good product, you've got to give it your best. You've got to see every angle and make sure by the time you are pressing the send button, that you have examined as much as possible every angle of a certain subject.
Before submitting any kind of specific thing, that you need to have a look and then another look and then another look, and then when you're sure, you need to get it done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you'll have your conversations with your editors, which is so important. And then you can do rewrites and, a fresh eye always helps. I always say, give a fresh, let somebody else look at your material, because after so many years, you're seeing the same material. You can't make out the difference anymore. Everything looks the same. Always I get my daughters, look at it and tell me which bits you're bored, which bits you feel you want to skip, and be absolutely brutally honest. So, they'll tell me and I'll know when it's too long, this bit's not working, shorten it, get it. So, it's an interactive process. I always ask them, my thing is, you mustn't get bored.
Reject your book, any kind of earlier pages as well.
Sorry?
Okay. Sorry, I'll just repeat. So I was asking that any editor or any person have ever rejected your book or say that, okay, you need to work it again, or you need to submit these things once more, or you need to rework on these things, because this is what usual people think, and the author is published, they just have a aura of that specific thing that, okay, he just got published, but they don't know the behind the scenes. So I would just like to ask, has that case ever happened to you?
Yeah, of course it has. So Victoria and Abdul, when my agent put it out, actually got rejections. I mean, those people, I'm not naming them, were regretting it after that because, it went on to become an international Oscar-nominated film. So it's actually published by a very small publishing house called the History Press, and they published my earlier book.
Okay, can you just repeat the name? The publishing house name.
So Victoria and Abdul in UK was published by a very small publishing house called the History Press.
Okay.
And they had also published my earlier book, Spy Princess, they had published. So I went back to them. They're very small, but they had a winner on their hands. And it was a bestseller, international bestseller, and a film. Sometimes maybe, some publishers don't even read a book. They haven't even gone through it. If they don't know the author, if it's a very big publisher. I'm not saying everybody does it, but, sometimes I feel they probably didn't even pay much attention when it came because, they probably didn't know me and that's it. But
that's right.
it can happen, but you shouldn't give up. I mean, I went with a small publisher. So what?
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I believe that I've gone through all those questions, right? Okay. And I believe I've gone some off-topic questions as well. So I'll just put an end to this whole thing, and I'll just say one thing, that after having a conversation with you, being non-reader, and specifically this novel because it's intriguing, and I am pretty sure that this became the best-selling book.
It is a bestseller in India, by the way. It's number 3 on the best-selling list right now.
I know.
So the
I know.
Latest one, Indian Express list. Yeah.
So part is that it's the number 3 best-selling. Yeah, I agree. And I do believe, after having a word with you, I do believe it should be the first bestseller. In my case, that should be the case.
Well, Victoria and Abdul was number 1 bestseller for weeks and weeks and weeks, almost 2 months in India, yeah. And then here in UK as well, it was on the bestseller. Sunday Times.
You have the local connect and all those things, local dialect in UK as well. And you have some... So, were you born and brought up in India or UK itself?
No. Born in India. I'm a Delhi girl. I went to university in Delhi, yeah. So I was born in Calcutta. I'm Bengali, but I never lived in Calcutta. So I was brought up my father was in the diplomatic service. We moved around, but the last years of schooling were Delhi. University, college was Delhi. I went to St. Stephen's College. So yeah, I'm very much a Delhi product.
Delhi girl.
Yes.
Proud to be an Indian and a Delhiite.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So it was lovely talking to you, ma'am.
Okay. All right then. Thanks a lot.
Right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.